You agree that this is the cost to America of the trade war with China, right? I mean, that tab is being picked up by American taxpayers in one. Mr. Ambassador, it was a simple question, right? In the first Trump administration.
And Senator, you and I both know it's because President Biden refused to enforce the agreement. He refused. The first year of that agreement, the Chinese purchased more ag than they had.
Wow, that moment hit differently. You can feel the tension as Senator Van Hollen zeroes in on a staggering number, $28 billion. That's the cost American taxpayers supposedly footed for the trade war with China, specifically to bail out our farmers. And you heard the attempt to deflect that question, to dodge the direct accountability of who pays the tab. But it gets even crazier. We're about to dive into the full clip where the ambassador fires back, not just defending the deal, but accusing the current administration of refusing to enforce it. This isn't just about soybeans. This is about political blame, national security, and whether or not a $28 billion trade war was worth it for the American people. Let's watch the full exchange.
The $12 billion and the $28 billion during the last administration. I mean, you agree that this is the cost to America of the trade war with China, right? I mean, that tab is being picked up by American taxpayers in one form.
Well, China has weaponized trade with the United States. Last year Congress appropriated $10 billion for farmers because they had, a large crop. This year they had a large crop. So, for better or for worse, this body will occasionally appropriate money to take care of these issues.
Just, Mr. Ambassador, it was a simple question, right? In the first Trump administration, U.S. taxpayers put up $28 billion. I don't know, the chairman's chart's missing, because of the surplus agricultural produce that we didn't export to China, right?
If China targets our farmers, we're going to take care of them, and we're not going to sit down while China does everything. I know people want the status quo; they want to trade with China and be dependent.
Mr. Ambassador,
but we don't
right?
accept it.
So here's I'm looking at a chart from the American Farm Bureau, and back in 2018 during the first Trump trade negotiations, obviously our exports for soybeans took a huge hit. Now they're taking a big hit. Now my only point is that American taxpayers are footing the bill for that, now $12 billion. And so then the question is, what do we get for it, right? What does China give? And I know during the first Trump administration, one of the things they committed to, supposedly, was increased imports of American goods. But it's a fact, is it not, that they only made good on 59% of the purchases promised?
And Senator, you and I both know it's because President Biden refused to enforce the agreement. He refused. The first year of that agreement, the Chinese purchased more ag than they had in years and years, and President Biden refused to enforce it.
Mr. Ambassador, this was the promise they made while Trump was back in office during those terms. So you're saying that while President Trump was in office in his first term, China complied with the agreement to purchase those goods?
They were compliant. They had their highest purchases of ag.
If you look at a chart, you'll see that
and President Biden just laid down and let them do whatever they wanted.
Actually, President Biden, as you know, kept the tariffs on. So let's go to.
I credit him for that. I credit him for that.
Well, I mean, he kept the tariffs on, so he didn't lay down and get rolled over. The reality is that China didn't fulfill its commitments under the previous agreement negotiated by the Trump administration. And I don't know what the Trump administration was prepared to do about it. I don't know what you're prepared to do if they don't follow through on the 12 million metric tons. But here's a question on the Japan deal, because we hear these grand announcements right after these deals about commitments countries have made. I just want to make sure I understand the commitment on the Japan deal, because Japan, as you know, already is the largest foreign investor in the United States, right? $819 billion, I'm told, as of last year, Japanese companies have invested in the United States. $819 billion.
They're a large investor. The Koreans told me they were bigger last year, but I'll credit you. They're a huge investor.
So I want to make sure I understand. You're saying that under the new Japan trade deal, Japan's committed to invest another $550 billion in the United States before the end of President Trump's term. Is that correct?
That's what they've committed to do. That's right.
So you're saying that by the end of the term, they're going to be up to $1.3 trillion.
They will invest an additional $550 billion over the next 3 years.
I mean, we don't know what they would have invested anyway in addition to that, but it'll be interesting to see how we monitor that. So how are we going to monitor that? I've been reading about through this EO, this special task force that's going to be set up, and then after these Japanese companies or investors get their full principal returned, the United States government is going to get 90% of the profits. Is that right?
The Commerce Department is monitoring and implementing those investment commitments. At USTR, we're not doing that. If the Commerce Department reports to us that they're not compliant, then we can look at,
So let's wrap up this explosive testimony. What we witnessed was a masterclass in political maneuvering, wrapped up in the complex language of trade. On one side, you have Senator Van Hollen, who is laser-focused on one thing: accountability. He's demanding to know who paid for the trade war and why the promised purchases from China never materialized. He's putting a face, the American taxpayer, on the $28 billion spent to prop up our farmers. This is the emotional core of his argument. Were these policies worth the cost? But for you and me, the key takeaway is simple. Trade deals are nothing without enforcement. Whether it's the 59% compliance on the China deal or the new $550 billion investment promised by Japan, a grand announcement on the world stage means absolutely nothing if there isn't a transparent, rigorous process to ensure those commitments are met. These billions of dollars affect real people, our farmers, our factories, and yes, our taxpayers. So I want to know what you think. If you had to choose, which administration do you hold more accountable for the failure of the China Phase 1 deal? The one that negotiated a deal that was only 59% fulfilled, or the one that the ambassador claims refused to enforce it? Let me know your thoughts and arguments in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into congressional testimony.